Hello, everybody. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome into another YouTube live show. I am John Kurtz. My apologies for being a day late today, but thank you for bearing with me on that. We've got some good old-fashioned drama to talk about today, some intra-conference drama in the Big 12, and it involves everybody's favorite, the transfer portal and money. This story about Robert Wright leaving Baylor for BYU, honestly, is like everything that college sports is today, like all the different elements of what makes 2025 college athletics such a completely wild time. It's really all encompassed here in this story. And I think there are so many layers to this. I think it is fascinating. And I honestly, I can't wait to dive into all of it with you here today. So I'm very much going to do that. I think there needs to be a lot of nuance that goes into this as you are analyzing what's happening with BYU and Baylor. Plus just a lot on the BYU front. You know, the Cougars have had to come out like guns a-blazing with a lot of leadership from the university and the church today to try and defend their honor, because it's being assumed that they are just money whipping players into coming there. And I don't think that is fair at all. So we're going to chat about it all. Plus Houston, man, I was so close, you guys. I was ready to do a live show on Monday night had Houston won. And maybe you can blame me for this. I was just trying to be ready and prepared so I could go live very quickly, but I had already made the graphic. I'd made the thumbnail and I had made the title all ready to go for the Houston video. It was in StreamYard. I was ready to do it. And then Houston blows a 12-point second half lead and they lose in crushing fashion. And guys, I mean, I hate to say it, but man, 2 points is the difference between a wildly different narrative for this college basketball season. And it sucks how much that tilts the scale back toward the SEC here and giving them a big time feather in their cap to win a basketball national championship. I hate it. Plus, I mean, I just really hate it for our guy, Kelvin Sampson, right? I mean, I sure hope that he gets a national championship. He's been in the Sweet 16 6 straight years, so he'll probably at least be in the second weekend again, but you do not get opportunities like that where you're up by 12 in the second half of a national championship game, man. That's tough. That was devastating. Quite frankly, it was devastating. So anyway, we've got that. If we have a little bit of time, I do have a bit on Texas Tech. They've landed yet another guy in the transfer portal in football. They're paying JT Toppin $4 million. If we're going to be talking about a place that's just throwing cash around like there's no tomorrow, it is Texas Tech. And I do not mean that as any sort of slight or insult, by the way, Texas Tech. Use what your mama gave you, right? That's the name of the game these days. So anyway, that's what I got. I'm a little under the weather today, so we'll see if I can make it the full hour. Cross your fingers. We'll see how this goes. But I appreciate everybody who is here. Please like the video as you file in. Let's see. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. All of that would be great. You can click the link for merch in the description of this video if you want some John Kurtz merch or some Open for Business merch. That is definitely available for you there. And subscribe to the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter, ofbnews.com. Just dropped one earlier today, a couple of hours ago. So would love for you to check that out as well. And on Venmo, at John-Kurtz-4 on Venmo, you can drop me a line there, leave a question or comment there with your donation, and I will kick off the next show with it. So if you are not able to watch this live, you can still be a part of the community. And I did want to shout out a couple of people. One, my guy Michael, who dropped in with his belated subscription, he says, for basketball season. I appreciate that, Michael. A great dude who loves the content that I'm putting out. So I very much appreciate that. Let's see. We've got Matthew here. Another very short, simple message. But Matthew just says, always enjoy your content. Thank you, Matthew. I appreciate that a lot. So a couple of guys, thank you very much for that. Let's see. Michael, thank you for your donation as well. Michael says, if you can't beat them, Florida and the refs down the stretch, join them. Houston freaking Cougars. What was that garbage? Embarrassing. Yeah, I mean, I have definitely seen a lot of complaining about the officiating, and it certainly turned on a dime, right? It went from 4 combined fouls in the first half to just a barrage of them in the second half. I'm not saying the officiating was great, but at some point you got to go beat Florida. You can't, if you're Houston, you can't. I'll talk more about this later, but you can't have the last 2 minutes and the last 3 possessions that they had. You simply have to be better. You need to get a shot up on the rim if you're going to win. So you got to go kill Florida. We saw it 3 different times in this tournament. They were the cockroach that you just couldn't get rid of. UConn, Texas Tech, Houston, nobody could go deliver the kill shot. You got to go do it. And Houston had every opportunity to, and they did not, unfortunately. So it sucks, but I appreciate it, Michael. Thank you. Thank you, sir, for your contribution. Okay. Let's start with this Baylor story, baby. I don't mean to, Baylor fans, I don't mean to say this like I'm all excited about your pain. I just think this is such a fascinating story and such a perfect story for 2025 college sports. So it's one of those that's fun. It's a fun sports radio kind of topic, and that's my background, baby. 10 years in sports radio. So here we go. If you have not been following all of this, Baylor has lost its star guard, Robert Wright. 11 points, 4 assists per game last year as a freshman. He shot 35% from 3. This is a guy that Baylor was going to build around. They're turning over a lot of that roster, and Baylor felt like they had him secured. Baylor fans are now furious that he went to the portal. It has now been reported by multiple folks, including Jeff Goodman, that it is going to be BYU, where Robert Wright winds up. So Baylor fans are furious. BYU is trying to defend its honor. Who is right in all of this? And I don't mean Robert. Who is right? I think everyone is. I think everyone's right. How about that? Okay. So I will explain here. I think it's possible that everybody can be right in this situation. Look, Robert Wright is a great player. That's definitely the type of guy you'd want to build around. I can understand why Scott Drew wanted to build around him. And according to Jeff Goodman and his reporting on this, Baylor thought it had him locked up and signed to a 7-figure NIL deal. He used the phrase more than $1 million. So Baylor was prepared to pay Robert Wright more than $1 million, and not just prepared, but they had a contract signed. Now, the problem is in today's day, this is, if you want to boil down to why the portal is so chaotic, it's this. I'm all for the players getting paid. Huge proponent of that. I don't have an issue with how much they're getting paid. But the worst thing about what's happening right now is that, there's really nothing binding at all. They can sign the contract and then bail a week later. It doesn't matter. And that's where you got to make the athletes employees, guys. You make the athletes employees, they could sign contracts and it would work like professional sports do. But NCAA, that's where we're at. So that's why Baylor is a huge part of why Baylor's left feeling so scorned. Like, man, you signed the deal. We had you locked up. It was a lot of money. Yes, you are a very good player, but north of $1 million seems pretty market value for Robert Wright, depending on who you ask these days. I guess if you're going to say, hey, John, JT Toppin just signed for $4 million at Texas Tech, which he did, maybe the going rate should have been higher for Robert Wright. I don't know. It seems not crazy low. I'll say that at least. So after that happens, then, of course, he does hit the portal. That news breaks earlier this week. And almost immediately when the news broke that Robert Wright was into the portal, as happens a lot of times with this, it seems clear that there was some back channeling going on, because almost immediately the word leaks that BYU is the most likely destination here. And this is probably what's going to happen for Wright. And now, as I mentioned, it is for sure. As of earlier today, when I was getting ready to prep some of this, that hadn't really come out. But now, 4 or 5 o'clock today, it really started making the rounds on Twitter, like Goodman and a lot of the major Pinacos, a lot of the major basketball reporters were hopping in and saying, yep, here it is, confirmed, BYU. Now, Jeff Goodman's report is in slight contrast to what we were seeing earlier this week. So earlier this week, it was being reported by it was Greg Grayson, I think, from Sikkim 365, who had said that it was a $3.5 million NIL deal to BYU. That got everybody really riled up talking about the money, and that's where the second part of this discussion is going to be about BYU and money and some of the accusations there, right? But $3.5 million was the dollar figure floated out there. Jeff Goodman is reporting that it's a $3 million NIL deal. And I will mention that Goodman he's pretty tight with Scott Drew, pretty tight with like Jerome Tang. I think that whole coaching tree. He is somebody that's pretty tight with all those guys. So I'd imagine that obviously like a lot of that's probably coming from the Baylor side. I don't know that for sure. That would be my informed speculation. And as I said, JT Toppin just got $4 million. So, $3 million is not as crazy as that sounds, right? Like everyone made a huge deal about Coleman Hawkins last year getting $2 million. Yesterday's price is not today's price. Value of players is going up. If it's going to be the Wild Wild West, you're going to keep seeing that every year. So now your Big 12 Player of the Year gets $4 million. Robert Wright apparently is getting $3 million. Now, some things to keep in mind here, okay? One, yes, agents are in many ways incentivized to leak bigger numbers. It's going to make them look better. They're certainly incentivized to leak the numbers, period. Make sure those get out there, which I think comes at the expense of the player. See Coleman Hawkins last year. I think it was bad for him that it had leaked that he made $2 million. The other thing is, yeah, it happened lightning quick. Of course, there was some back channeling going on, but that's not, I guess you can call it shady if you want, but it's happening with virtually every single recruitment that's out there. I mean, if you go subscribe to Trilly Donovan's Discord, like you're going to, there's all sorts of talk about, this school lured a guy into the portal. Like almost immediately someone enters the portal, there's a destination for a lot of these guys that is the most likely. Like it's just how it works, man. So you can dislike it, but it's not like BYU was doing anything out of the ordinary with that. So Baylor fans are furious, right? And I understand. I understand why Baylor fans would be furious. They should be very angry about this. I would be. I mean, it sucks to lose a star player like that. It absolutely does, especially when you're going through all this roster turnover. It's been a frustrating couple of years for Baylor since the national championship. This is the guy you were going to build around. And yes, you thought you had a signed contract. I understand. Like I see the frustration here from BU Bear. Apparently a signed contract means absolutely nothing. Like, unfortunately, that's the case in the NCAA. This is the state that college sports is in. It doesn't really mean anything, which is a crappy situation. That's not good. That's not the way it should be, but it is the way that it is. So yeah, you should be upset about that. Not only are you losing a star player because of the way the environment is set up right now and you thought you had him signed, but you're losing him in conference. Like you're going to have to play the guy. He'll have a chance to beat you. That's doubly crappy. You're going to have to hear about him, see him quite a bit. And there are other schools that have gone through this, right? Iowa State lost Tyrese Hunter to Texas. Texas Tech lost Kevin McCullough to Kansas. Football side, like Trace Ford left Oklahoma State, went to Oklahoma. We have seen this happen. And in every single case, I can remember in all those cases coming on here and being like, man, I really feel for the school that lost the player. Like that sucks. That really sucks. I can very much level with you and be like, I would hate it. I would hate to have to see that. It's come close to happening with, a couple of K-State guys in hoops that have been listed with Kansas for a moment. I'm just dreading the day when that finally happens and I'll have to do it like that. That will be a bummer. So regardless of how much money was actually paid, whether it was $3.5 million, $3 million, whatever you think about BYU and their NIL situation, Baylor fans have every right to be very angry and upset about this. Now, what I would say about that is that one, it is kind of just a fact of life right now. Baylor fans should be mad, but it is a fact of life and everybody to some extent has to go through it right now. It's a lot like a breakup. I would tell Baylor fans, this is like going through a breakup. It sucks. You should be upset. I understand. Take some time, grieve it, get through it. It will take some time to not sting. But it also is just a fact of life that everybody basically will experience at some point. And it's also something that will come back around on the other side. Baylor will likely be on the other side of this at some point. And same with BYU. It will happen to everybody. It's the circle of life right now in college athletics. That's just the way it works. So I don't begrudge Baylor for being upset, Baylor fans here. But the but here on the discussion is it does feel like the backlash, and I don't know that this is even just from Baylor fans, But the backlash has gone too far toward saying, hey, BYU is only getting players here because they have money from the church. They have money from the church, and they're just throwing it all around. And that's the only reason that AJ DeBonsta's there. And now they're taking Robert Wright from Baylor, a very proud program in the Big 12, when they already had this signed deal. There's a lot of demonizing BYU for this. And that's where I think you should draw the line. I think BYU was just operating under the normal course of business that is college sports in 2025. I don't think BYU really did anything wrong. And I think it is very foolish and ignorant to say that BYU is just getting players because of money. Money is helping. They have the money for the table stakes to be in the game for the highest level players. But if you think it's just because they're throwing 50% more money out there than all of these players, and that's the only reason this is happening, I don't think that is fair. And so that's an important distinction here on this whole discussion, right? So, okay, Robert Wright is leaving for BYU, reportedly, according to Jeff Goodman, getting paid $3 million, when his reports say Baylor had a contract signed for north of $1 million, over $1 million. That is a substantial difference in money. But let's start by thinking about this, okay? I mean, if Robert Wright goes on the open market, he's probably going to have other schools that would be willing to pay him around $3 million. Just the way the market feels right now, again, I don't know that for sure, but with JT Toppin signing for $4 million, it doesn't seem unreasonable to me that a number like that would be in contention with what I'm just throwing out schools here. I don't know specific needs, but what in Alabama and Arkansas, some of these schools that have thrown around tons of money in the portal, what they would probably be willing to pay. So I don't think just assuming BYU was the only school to make some like crazy wild offer here is the only reason that they're getting players. A lot of this has come up with AJ DeBonsta recently too. Like there was the video going around this week of him sitting on the bench and a fan from the stands is like yelling at him like, hey, great job getting $7 million out of BYU. And AJ turned around and was like, hey man, that's a false rumor. Like that's not true. Now, did it take a lot of money to get AJ DeBonsta? Of course it did. K-State was recruiting him for a while, so I probably have a little bit more knowledge of that recruitment than some, and definitely money was a big factor there. You had to have a lot of money to be in the game, but that just got you in the game. I think, again, it's about table stakes. Can you just get to the poker table to even be able to play the game? Then you have to sell yourself and the program and what you're doing. And I think that's what's happening here with BYU, and people are getting upset about it because they're not really used to it. And I think there's an assumption that, well, the church has all this money. It's not really look, and I'll get to what some of the BYU folks are saying about this, like BYU leadership. But BYU has a lot of really successful people who are fans and boosters because that is the culture there. It breeds a lot of success. And so you have a lot of boosters with a lot of money to be able to get you whatever you need to be in the conversation there. And I think it's just an assumption and a fairly ignorant one and something that people will snap to quickly, especially if you are like a Baylor fan and you're upset that you lost this player, you'll say, well, it's just money coming from the church. Well, BYU has gone out of its way to make sure that they're at least getting their message out there that that's not what this is about. So let's see. This was earlier today. Was this today? Yeah, that was today, April 10th. Clark G. Gilbert, he is the commissioner of education for the LDS Church. Okay. So he says principles for BYU athletics. Number one, no church funding, no debt, engage in NIL competitively, but never the highest bidder, focus on mission, coaching, BYU environment. And it links to this article from the Deseret News, which is the best place that I have really found consistently. One of certainly the best places to get BYU news and info out there. I understand the skepticism here. You can see the interaction on this. It's gotten quote tweeted to oblivion. A lot of people really rolling their eyes at it. And like, I do get it, after you're paying a guy and the reports are going around that it's $3 or $3.5 million to pay a guy. Like, I can understand people rolling their eyes a little bit and being like, really? Never the highest bidder, never the highest bidder. And I would be a little bit cautious about using the language never the highest bidder. But again, it is very reasonable to assume that DeBonsta just had a minimum requirement to meet. You get there, you get to the table, then you can play your hand. And what BYU has is a really good hand right now. Okay. There was also this BYU advancement vice president, Keith Vorkink, talked to the Deseret News in that article. He said, just to be clear, because there are all sorts of strange narratives out there, I would just reiterate there's absolutely no church or university financial support of any student athlete agreements. Look, that I think is very easily believable. Like, yes, the church has a ton of money, but they also have a ton of boosters with a ton of money too. That's a place that has a lot of really well-off alumni. He also said that approach will not change even if the House settlement is approved. We're certainly wanting to be in the game, and this is the messaging we share with the collective to the extent that they're involved. But we will never be the highest bidder. That is not our strategy. He did respond to, so there was an ESPN article on February 5th that quoted a prominent BYU booster as saying, "You are not going to outbid us." Vorkink said that is not the strategy of the university. Okay, there a lot of nuance you could get into there, what the collective is thinking and what a booster is going to be thinking versus what the university is going to be thinking. If you want to get bogged down in technicalities, technically the highest bidder, whatever, I think generally speaking, BYU has enough money to get in the game. And I just don't think it's fair to say it's only the money that's doing this when you have an NBA head coach coaching the team. Let's just call a spade, man. I mean, Kevin Young is a guy who was going to get an NBA head coaching job. So at some point, it was going to be an NBA head coach. Maybe not now, but maybe so. I mean, he seemed like he was really fast-tracked for that when he was with the Suns, okay? It's worked very well. You now have a proof of concept. After year one, the team went to the Sweet 16, and not just that, but you have like Igor Demin, who's now going to the NBA. He had a very successful year. It seems like things worked out very well for him. You've got like a whole NBA system, NBA coach, NBA coaching staff, development, like everything that they're doing, Kevin Young's bringing that with him from the NBA. So it's really like you want to go to like an NBA training camp and then be able to play high-level college basketball in arguably the best basketball conference out there. Yeah, you can do that at BYU. That's a pretty damn strong selling point. Oh, you want fan support and want it to feel like a big-time atmosphere? I mean, again, the Big 12, you're going to play at Allen Fieldhouse. You're going to go play at Houston. But you're also going to play at the Marriott Center where there's 19,000 fans there. So that's again, pretty enticing. Like, you can get an NBA head coach, NBA staff, all this stuff to play for you at a place with tons of resources, tons of passionate fan support, arguably the best conference in the country. Yeah, of course, BYU is getting players. And if you have any doubt about that, I've mentioned this a couple times, but the best proof of concept that BYU has for what's happened with Kevin Young is the fact that their arch rival Utah said, well, hey now, that looks awesome. Like, that looks really good. Let's copy that. They did the same thing. Like, they pulled it off with the Alex Jensen hire. They wanted to do the exact same thing they saw happening at BYU, and they fired a coach who exceeded expectations this year to do it. Like, guys, let's just take a step back, deep breaths. This sucks. If you're a Baylor fan, this sucks. And even if you're just a neutral college basketball observer and you're looking at this and saying, man, I don't like the fact that a guy can sign a contract and then just up and leave, I'm with you. I don't either. But until everybody just steps up and says, hey, we need to make these guys all employees, you're not going to be able to do that. So it is just the reality of the situation. So the reality of the situation is guys are going to be able to do this. A signed contract's not going to mean anything. And Baylor will likely benefit from that at some point. BYU will likely be on the losing end of that at some point. It is a fact of life in college athletics these days. And BYU has a lot going for it other than just money. And I think you would be very foolish to deny it. That I think is the reality of this situation. I see Gruntled Boy in there. I have been using the $3 million number from Jeff Goodman, Gruntled Boy. Hopefully you're not disgruntled, just gruntled by this situation. But even if it's inflated, look, it's a lot of money, and it clearly is more than the $1 million plus that Baylor was going to pay. I think we can reasonably ascertain that out of all of this. But to me, the specifics of it don't really matter that much. Like, this is the game. This is how it works. It's a perfect encapsulation of how it works right now. So I wanted to come in and basically defend Baylor and defend BYU in all of this, because I think both sides have reasonable points to make. And in the end, like end of the day, best thing that I could say, all is fair in love and war and the transfer portal. That's kind of what we've got, guys. All is fair in love and war in the transfer portal. And you can like it or not, but that's the deal. So yeah, all right. I'm gonna take this because Baylor fan, I feel for you. BU Bear, Scott Drew's relationship with Wright went back many years. He recruited him very early on. Robert Wright was loyal, but his dad is a real problem. Baylor will be fine though. Hey, that's how a lot of this stuff goes, man. I mean, again, I feel like there's just a lot. I don't mean to diminish the Baylor story, but I think there's a lot of this, there's a lot of this that has happened in the portal era where it's like, man, we had a great relationship with you. It goes back a long ways. We did X, Y, Z for you, and you just up and left. And it's like, yeah, that's the deal. That's the portal these days. Baylor will be fine. Of course, Baylor will be fine. Scott Drew's way too good for that to be some major issue for the Bears. I'm confident in saying that. Let me know what you think. If you want to guarantee that you make it on the show tonight, don't even think I mentioned that. You can submit a super chat by clicking the $ below the chat box. Appreciate anybody who does that if you're able to support that way. John-Kurtz-4 on Venmo. And I will kick off the next show with your question or comment if you leave it there for me on Venmo. So if you're not able to watch it live, you can still be a part of the action. Make sure you subscribe to the Open for Business newsletter. It's the Big 12 newsletter, free, straight to your inbox twice a week. OFBnews.com, 3,500 Big 12 fans reading it. Join the party, OFBnews.com. Appreciate everybody who does that. And of course, like and subscribe. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. All great ways that you can support what it is that I'm doing here to bring you this content. I unfortunately regret to inform you that this next segment will not be a fun one. This is not a fun one and not one that I want to talk about with you. I told you earlier, I was all ready to do a live show on Monday night after Houston won. They had a 12-point lead in the second half. Houston loses the national championship game to Florida, and they really hurt the Big 12 with this loss. Okay. There's really no tiptoeing around it. There are some silver linings. The Duke win was great. I didn't expect Houston to get to the title game once they were playing Duke in the Final Four, but this was a massive missed opportunity for the Big 12. And it's not the first time that the Big 12 has had a massive missed opportunity against the SEC on a national stage with something that could have generated a lot of great publicity for the league, unfortunately. Man, I mean, this game, like, they had it under control. Florida, I don't understand. Texas Tech and Houston and UConn, if you want to add to it, but specifically from the Big 12, although, maybe future Big 12 member UConn. Everybody had Florida just dead to rights and could not deliver the kill shot. And that was the problem. If you didn't bury them, you left enough room where Walter Clayton could just rip off 5 straight threes against you. You were going to be in trouble. And that's what happened. Just devastatingly close for Houston against a team that Texas Tech could have knocked out, which would have given the Big 12 2 teams in the Final Four. I mean, you think about the gravity of the missed opportunities there for both schools. If just one of them gets that, it's a massive achievement and a massive accomplishment for the Big 12 to either have 2 in the Final Four or just one team winning the national championship. But Florida, as I said, was the cockroach. You couldn't kill them. It's devastating. Before I get to the broader picture here and the Big 12 stuff, I mean, it's just devastating for Kelvin Sampson. I cannot even imagine, dude. Cannot even imagine everything that guy's been through. And I know you can say what you will about cheating and, what he got in trouble for with the NCAA these days is nothing. But if you want to tell me at the time, hey, it was cheating, play by the rules, like, okay. But the guy has been through a lot and built his career back up. And with the job that he has done at Houston to turn that from a program that had been to one tournament in 25 years to 6 straight Sweet 16s, like, dude, come on, man. Come on. The guy needed a national championship, and he was so close to it. Todd Golden is 39. All right. There's a lot of things to say about Todd Golden and perhaps reasons why you wouldn't want him to win a national championship. But among them, He's got plenty of time. Todd Golden got plenty of time. He did not need that. But narrative-wise for the Big 12, dude, I mean, it really sucks. It really, really, really sucks. That could have been the Big 12 winning 3 of 5 championships, a third with a third different program, would have been Baylor, Kansas, Houston. The only blip in between there would have been the 2-year run of Dan Hurley, so you could easily look around and be like, hey, I mean, the only power conference, Big East, maybe I shouldn't be so mean to the Big East. The only Power 4 conference that is winning national championships right now is the Big 12. It's the Big 12 and Dan Hurley. Like, that's college basketball right now. That becomes your narrative just instantly like that. And then you start looking at these preseason top 25s for next year. I think John Rothstein already has his up, and he had 4 Big 12 teams in the top 11, including Houston as preseason number 1. So suddenly you'd be talking about, man, I mean, Big 12's won 3 of 5. They've had a team in the title game in 4 of 6. And now next year, they're just littering the preseason top 10. Like, they look like they're poised to just do it again. So, hey, really cool story for the SEC in the regular season. Clearly a basketball conference that's getting better, but like, the Big 12 is where you go if you want to win titles. That's the thing. SEC, it would have been, SEC still has not won a national championship since 2012 Kentucky, right? We're going well over a decade now since they've actually won a national championship. That's where we could have been if Houston just had one more bucket in him. If Emmanuel Sharp had one more pump fake in him, that's where we could have been. Pump fake, sidestep to your left, get a wide open, clean look at 3 there. Or just, I mean, I feel for Emmanuel Sharp too, because 2 of those last 3 possessions, it's him. Cryer's the other one. I mean, it's the guys that have done it for him all year. They just flubbed it, man. They biffed it when they needed one more bucket. Now, the narrative is, hey, this is just a perfect way to cap what was a dominant season for the SEC. Of course, they wound up with a national champion. This was the most dominant force in college basketball all season long. So yeah, it makes sense. The SEC gets to put a cherry on top of having the most teams ever in the tournament, most teams ever in the Sweet 16, getting multiple teams into the Final Four, and then having a national champion. And it comes at a time when, last season notwithstanding, because yes, the SEC did take some lumps this year on the football field. Didn't work out as well as they wanted it to. But it really overall comes at a time when the SEC is like the preeminent force in college football. And now they get to say, hey, we'll win basketball titles too. And this past year, we were the preeminent force in college basketball. So they're going to be nauseating. If nothing else, we can worry about what happens in the boardroom when Sankey gets in there and, whatever they're trying to negotiate. But if we're thinking about just our own everyday lives and having to be out there on Twitter, or if you're listening to podcasts, I mean, I can't even imagine what the SEC podcast sphere has been like with all of this. It's going to be nauseatingly obnoxious now that we're giving them basketball national championships as well. So it's pretty brutal. It's pretty brutal. And it's not just all about these like narratives. I have made this point a million times by now, but it's not just that you worry about narratives and what fans can say, but there's always so much more on the line now. College athletics has become an ongoing existential crisis if you're not one of the top 10 to 15 brands in the sport. So, I mean, it has real tangible consequences. The Big 12 needs every legitimate, tangible feather in the cap it can get to build its brand and build its reputation to try and keep you at the head table, or at least as close to the head table as possible for as long as possible in this environment that we're in, which is eating its own and consuming its own. And I just kept having this thought, like, man, this feels so much like Arizona State losing in double OT in the playoff to Texas. It feels so much like that. You are right there. You are right there from making a massive statement with a win. For Arizona State, it's, hey, get a 4th and 13 stop. Get a 4th and 13 stop, and you win the game. For Houston, it's don't blow a 12-point lead in the second half or score once in 3 straight possessions at the end of the game. And they couldn't do it. And you couldn't do it. You were that close. And it would have, remember what we talked about at the time with the Arizona State game. Like, that's flipping the narrative on hey, the Big 12 doesn't deserve a playoff bye. This Big 12 group of 5 nonsense with the playoff bye, it's stupid. Everyone's been arguing, going at each other's throats about that, and that the SEC deserve more love in the playoff. You could have shut them the absolute hell up with that. Not only does the Big 12 deserve this bye, but also you guys did not deserve special treatment because we just beat your runner-up. The Big 12 champion, who was picked last in the conference, just beat your runner-up. That's how close you were. And while it does generate a lot of respect that you came that close and had the massive comeback, not finishing the job makes it much more easily forgettable. Much less tangible, much more easily forgettable. So that was a huge one. That was a huge missed opportunity for the Big 12 on both occasions, and I just hate it, man. I really hate it. But I guess if you want to take the positive from it, it's that the Big 12 has proven over, really going back, if you want to go back to TCU, like ever since all this happened where everybody thought the league was going to totally collapse in 2021, the Big 12 has played for a national championship in football, played for a national championship in basketball, and the Big 12 champion came within one play, perhaps a bad targeting call as well, of beating SEC runner-up Texas in the college football playoff quarterfinals. So there have been a lot of things that would provide some evidence that, like, hey, the Big 12 can compete on the highest level or at least close to it. That's nice. It's progress, not perfection right now, unfortunately. But when you're that close, it is killer to not be able to just fully finish and take full advantage. All right. Please like the video. Please subscribe to the channel. I see the chat's been getting a little bit heated there. I can understand how the Baylor BYU topic is very, very contentious. I understand. Let me know what you think in the comments. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, subscribe to the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter at ofbnews.com. I appreciate everybody who does that. You can check out merch as well at the merch link in the description of the video. Let's see. All right, last thing I'm going to slip in here is just a little bit on the Texas Tech Red Raiders, because Texas Tech, if you've been paying attention at all, you know that Texas Tech has dominated the transfer portal this offseason in football. They're having a pretty good basketball offseason too. Just paying JT Toppin $4 million helps. Now Darian Williams in the portal, so that hurts. But focusing in on football here, Texas Tech got another one, man. Another one. David Bailey, Stanford outside linebacker. Stanford has a coaching change, right? Troy Taylor gets pushed out by Andrew Luck. So David Bailey, who visited Texas and UCLA, decides to go to Texas Tech. So here's Texas Tech, little old Texas Tech out recruiting Texas for yet another player. Depending on where you look, the number 1 or 2 transfer class in the country for the Red Raiders, and it just keeps getting better. And we're just at the point where, I think we're beyond the point, honestly, where Texas Tech has no excuse to not win double-digit games this year. I'll temper it at no excuse to not win double-digit games. I won't even go all the way and say, hey, you've got to win the conference or you've got to make the playoff, but you got to win double-digit games. You got to break through that glass ceiling that's been there since Leach left. You cannot go out and get this much talent and have this much hype around it without it happening. I saw this. If you want a good way to contextualize this and what Texas Tech has done, if you're sitting here saying like, okay, great portal class, John, but what does that really mean? This was from the great Parker Fleming, who says blue chip recruits through the portal this year. Texas Tech has 12. The rest of the Big 12 has 12. Texas Tech has as many as the entire rest of the conference, which is 15 teams. You can see by position, a couple edges, a couple offensive tackles. That's how you know you're spending money, because edges and offensive tackles, as well as quarterback, like that's as expensive as it gets in the portal. And they've got a couple of those. And it almost feels a little bit gratuitous at this point. Like, okay, Tech, we get it, man. We get it. You guys have money. You guys are spending the money. You've got a really deep football roster now because of it. Just go play and go win. Who else are we going to add? We do still we've got a spring window to get through here with the portal. What else could possibly happen? Let's see what this other on 3 bit was that I was going to share with you. Oh, that was JT Toppin. Okay. So we talked about Toppin. Look, we all know how this is. Cody Campbell bankrolling this. This is kind of almost the opposite of the BYU conversation. That's not fair to say the opposite, because Texas Tech has plenty to sell as well, including that unbelievable new football facility that they have that I think most of us saw the video of that was rolling around a couple of months ago. Tech has a lot to sell. The program has been improving slightly under Joey McGuire. He's a really energetic coach. That's a fan base that cares a lot. And they've got a sterling, pristine new facility, a Taj Mahal, as Bill Snyder would say. They've got a lot to sell, but they definitely have the money. I mean, that's definitely the money. And I don't think there's any shame in that at all. I know with BYU, it gets a little bit more touchy because of some of the religious overtones that are there from people on both sides of that. Texas Tech, look, we got money. We got Cody Campbell. You don't. Deal with it. And teach me the rules. I'll play the game. That's the rules of engagement these days in college athletics. Go do it. But, man, the concern I would have, if there is a concern I would have for Texas Tech here, it's how do the pieces fit? And I know it's easy to just say, well, you would just overwhelm with talent. It'll be fine. How do the pieces fit? I am a Kansas State fan. Okay. You can see by my, this was made in 1997. Okay. K-State winning the 1997 Fiesta Bowl that I'm wearing right now. I believe the kids call that drip, ladies and gentlemen. My point being, as a Kansas State fan, I saw how spending about the most money you could possibly spend can go disastrously wrong this basketball season if the fit is not there. Probably less volatility on that front in football because there are so many other players on the roster than there are in basketball, right? Basketball, you have one or two things go really poorly. It's going to make a bigger difference than in football, where you're spread more thin on all of that. So there may be less risk of that, but more money, more problems. That can happen. You can have locker room issues if stuff's going around with that. I don't know. Tech probably has enough money to just satisfy people, even if there are problems. But that will be the thing I think Joey McGuire has to do. Manage expectations, make sure that these pieces fit. Of course, a lot will be on Baron Morton also, just to make sure that he is up to par and being able to captain the ship, because that is such an important position in college football, quite obviously. But I think Tech will just be, because of that, and because we have seen in the Big 12 how this can blow up in your face when you are out there very proudly spending money, this becomes, I mean, is there a more fascinating team than Texas Tech this year in college football to watch, just in terms of like an intrigue and interest perspective? I mean, they're definitely going to be up there. And I think that's objectively true. I don't think that's just a Big 12 centric point of view here. Like when you're out recruiting Ole Miss and LSU and Oregon in the portal, you're cooking the way that Joey McGuire has been cooking with that. James Blanchard, that whole crew. I mean, that's going to draw a lot of eyeballs and a lot of interest from other people. Well, how well is that going to work? Does that mean the Big 12, can the Big 12 really buy a roster that is worthy of competing at or near the top of the sport? I guess we'll find out. We already saw, to my point in the last segment, Arizona State with a roster that was nowhere near the top of the sport, was damn near able to beat Texas. That was one play away from beating Texas in the playoff. Big 12 was able to do that without an expensive roster at all. I mean, that was an Arizona State program that was having to rebuild itself from the ground up. And the point there is they're picked dead last in the Big 12. If you're picked dead last in the Big 12, I don't care what you want to say about how even the conference is. That means you're not an overwhelmingly talented team, just in terms of raw physical talent. Could be undervalued, and sure, that definitely happened to some extent with Arizona State. But you do not have a top echelon talent roster. You can now make the argument Texas Tech does. We'll see how that works coming out of the Big 12. Can that legitimately do it? They should be a program that has a lot of eyeballs on them because of that this year. The other thing that I would make, the other point that I would make on this is just that, you know, we're still in this environment of wild, wild west. We'll see what happens with the House settlement, and that's going through final stages, it would appear, in court in terms of getting an approval. But, man, Texas Tech would prefer the system to stay the way it is right now. You know, we've got Baylor and BYU fans fighting in the chat about this system, and it's created a lot of animosity with the Robert Wright situation. But Texas Tech Would just as soon see it stay exactly as it is right now. As long as it's just going to be a money thing, we can compete for days. Cody Campbell just sold another company for $4 billion. We'll be all right. Going to be all right. Not going to be losing any money battles there. If that is the be all end all and how you're going to recruit, Texas Tech's going to be just fine in that department. It would certainly appear. So anyway, for the Big 12 in general, it's one of those where, like, if this keeps escalating and prices keep going up, and last year it was Coleman Hawkins getting $2 million, that was the big thing, and now JT Toppin's getting $4 million, and nobody is making nearly as big a deal out of it as they did with Coleman Hawkins last year. You can see the way the price is going up. There's some inflation here, right? Some inflation happening in how much the guys are getting paid. That's going to be a tough thing for Big 12 schools to keep up with, for most Big 12 schools to keep up with if it keeps going that way. Texas Tech would be one that it may not be really that big of an issue for them to keep up with it if it's going to keep heading that way. All right, I'm going to hop off a little bit early tonight. Like I said, a bit under the weather today, so appreciate you guys hanging out with me. Let me know what you think about all this in the comments. Hit me up on Venmo, John-Kurtz-4. If you have a question or comment, you didn't see this live, I'll kick off the next show with it. So you can still be a part of the conversation. I'd appreciate it if all of you guys would like the video on your way out. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and subscribe to the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter, ofbnews.com. Just put one of those out earlier today. So yeah, thank you all. Hope you have a lovely rest of your Thursday night, and have a great weekend. Should be talking to you on Sunday. Take care, and I will see you all very soon.